so like so after I spent that check and then like had to scrape to my next payday, I was like, you know what, never fucking again. Like I learned quick, right? And so I was like, where I need to hang out. I'm young. I need to hang out, but I need to hang out in a place that's going to keep me focused on my goals. Otherwise, I'm going to get lost in the sauce, right?
You are now listening to the Your First Steps podcast. It's great to talk about $1 million dreams, but where do we start? How do we get there? Listen up as you hear directly from real estate industry leaders on how they reach success in their fields. And most importantly, what were their first steps? Let's get this party started. Here's your host, Eli the Real Estate Guy.
Hey, how's it going, guys? This is Eli the Real Estate Guy, and thank you all so much for coming into another episode of the Your First Steps podcast. All right, now, when you're talking about real estate and when you're looking to purchase a property, you're going to have some type of capital or some type of financing whenever you're acquiring these properties. And today we have the pleasure of speaking with a mortgage broker that's going to explain to us not only what is a mortgage broker, but what they do and why is it so important to use one. So everybody, welcome Chrissi Sanders. Chrissi, how you doing today?
Hey, Eli, what's up? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So for the few people that don't know who you are, let everybody know who you are and what you do.
So I'm a mortgage broker. So basically we are a correspondent lender. So a correspondent lender means that we actually have our own funds. And so what most mortgage brokers are is essentially like actual broker is when you actually have to go to the market and kind of ask like, can I do this? Can I do that? Whatever. What we can actually do is we can negotiate the rates, terms, prices, and stuff like that for you, close in our own funds, and then sell to the aftermarket. So what that allows us to do is give you better programs and stuff because we're not beholden to one lender, as in like locked in like a broker would be or a bank with whatever their own programs are. So it's a good time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for letting us know that. So just to let everybody know how Chrissi and I met. So we actually met on Clubhouse. We are part of an accountability group called the First Step Family what was the name of it? Holy crap. Hold on.
First Step.
Well, the First Step Family. All right. And so, yeah, exactly. So with this, it started off as a every morning thing, Monday through Friday, but then it went down to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And what we'll do is we'll talk about our personal, professional, fitness goals. And we had the room for about 2 years. Now it's on a pause, but we're going to be starting back up very soon. And something that I always loved about Chrissi is that she was very, much a straight shooter. Let everybody know, what it is, how it is, and what she felt about a certain situation. And I really appreciated you bringing that energy to the group. So before we get into you being a mortgage broker, let us know what it was like growing up in the Sanders household and how you were as a child and how it was growing up for you.
Yeah, so my childhood was pretty cool. You know what I mean? At first, like it was pretty cool. Like I can't sit there and say like I don't have a story where, parents mistreated me or anything like that. Like it was definitely a good upbringing. Like I felt like I was loved. My mom, I was raised by a single mother. What the hell? Sorry. I don't know what that is, but I was raised by a single mother and my parents were divorced, but my dad was somewhat in my life. Unfortunately, when things started to kind of like change in my life was probably in my teen years where my father was killed. Like we lost our house. It was like all these different things. And so I guess that's what kind of like drove me. And that was kind of like my turning point. And so my turning point was when I saw like all these things kind of in our household, households changing, things like that. I kind of had made I made like this thing to myself where I was like, I'm gonna make $167,000, right? And like for whatever reason, in my like 15, 16-year-old brain, $167,000 was going to be the dollar amount that was going to make all of the issues, make my mom stop crying, make everything like be a thing, right? So like, and I was like, and so I went on Google at the time, like, because I didn't even have a laptop or computer. I had like this little small, like, I don't know if it was like a Sprint phone or whatever, but you can kind of access the internet. It took like a really long time, but
Right.
and I Googled like all the jobs that made $167,000 a year. And so I came up with finance, you know what I mean? And so so like it was like Goldman Sachs started their associates at 167 or it might have been 178 or something like that. But either way, like I was like, I don't know, I got this number in my brain of $167,000, and that this was going to be the thing, and I was going to buy my mom a house, and I was going to buy my mom a car, and I was going to get her all these things, and it was going to be fine, and everybody would be happy. And my mom used to say, like, literally, go to college, make sure that nobody dangles you. You know what I mean? You don't want to ever be, kind of beholden to anybody, and like, and somebody kind of in charge of your own life decisions. And so I went to school, and so I played sports and stuff. So at that point, I for whatever reason, fell into communications journalism major there, and I was trying to like and I minored in finance. So then I got a job offer out of school, and one was like 22,000 to go cover, I think, like the Detroit Lions or something like that. And then the other was like $55,000 to go work at Bernie Merino companies and do marketing. And so I did that. And so I grew within the company, was constantly promoted till at one point I was running marketing for a region. And then at that point I went over to BMW, ran marketing over there, comfortably hit that 6-figure mark. And then I ended up starting a sports agency, which, like, in my mind, like, I was like, okay, I know it's like we started with finance and here we are with marketing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I was like, okay, like somewhere along the line, I started to want to control my narrative a little bit more. And when I say control my narrative, I wanted to like write my own paycheck. So like, I was like, I can go close this deal and I could go make this amount of money, or I could literally go take the salary and I could work my ass off, be a top performer, and literally make this amount of money no matter what. And so it could be, Snail Bob next door to me, who literally does absolutely nothing,
Right.
and like, just, you know what I mean, and he'll make the same amount of money. And on top of that, by being in corporate America, I was not in the mood anymore to convince people of my worth, you know what I mean? So like, as a Black person and as a Black woman in corporate America, most people know, like, honestly, like it'll sometimes you'll find yourselves in these situations where you have to constantly like remind people, like, or fight for the very salary that the actual position calls for. It's wild. So at that point I was like, I'm done having this conversation with people about how much my worth is. I'm going to set that price every day, like the stock market. And so then that led me into entrepreneurship. I did well at a country club when I was 22
hold
years
on.
old.
Before we get in there, because you're going right now, and there's a few things I wanted to touch on. So remember that country club spot, and I'll remind you of that. So going back to the childhood, you said something that was interesting. How you came up with the number 167,000. So I know the imagination of a child. When things happen, you'll have like certain things that just inspire you, and you're like, boom, that's what I'm going to go with. Do you remember what triggered that 167 number?
Um, no, I don't. I know that I had a cousin named Richie who I love to death, and we're friends, and we're like best friends. And he worked on Wall Street, and I remember Richie, when I was a kid, had this shiny like BMW, like M6 or something. It was like some souped up BMW. And and he worked on Wall Street. And so at that point, like and I remember people used to talk about six figures and all that. And then I was like, you know what? And for whatever reason, as a 15-year-old, I was like accounting for taxes or something. Like, so I was like, at this 167, I can get $100,000 essentially, like, you know what I mean? And this will make everything right. And I think like at the time, my mom was probably making like 28,000 or something like that. It wasn't like a lot. And she had to work various jobs and stuff like that before she got back to stable, because she's a teacher, and then they laid off a bunch of teachers, and then she had to go work at Target and all this shit and all, you know what I mean? So I was like, I'm going to like quadruple my mother's salary. Like, it's gonna be great. Is like no more tears. Like, you know what I mean? And it's a lot when you like see your parent cry every day. And so I was like, I'm gonna do this. And when I went to college, and I knew it would take me a while to do this. So when I went to college, I don't even know if I should be saying this, because I don't know if it's whatever, but at the end of the day, like, I got this book money, right? So I had a scholarship, and I had leftover money that was supposed to be for books. And so instead of buying books that semester, I put it as a down payment for my mother apartment. And then I just kind of I kind of just winged it.
So so let's talk about that for a second. So with this, so was it like a loan, or was it a grant, or what? Or do you want to talk about what the finances?
Yeah, it was a scholarship. It was a scholarship. Yeah, like it was like a scholarship, and then like it paid the tuition, and then after that I had, I don't know what it was. It might have been like $1,500 left over. Gotcha. And I literally, in which I could have used for books, I could have used for Nikes or whatever. Right. I don't know, but I was like, I gave it to my mother, and I think the only thing I got from that is probably like some Auntie Anne's or something like that. And,
so what I'll say about that though, and it's great that you had the foresight of being able to use those funds for something else, because I do feel like because I've had situations where I fell out of FAFSA, or I'd have money left over after your tuition, everything is paid. You have some finances left over, and as a young person, you're usually the mindset goes to now I got money. Now I could do my thing. I could do whatever. But to have that frame of mind, or the presence of mind of being like, okay, wait, I have this money. There is a need here. Let me use the money for the need and not just my desires. Because what I think about a lot is, and I've seen this happen I've seen a couple of videos of this. So it'll be about a group of 4 or 5 friends. They'll have some money that they have left over from a scholarship or a grant or whatever, or they'll use their student loans, and they'll take those funds and put it as a down payment into a project or a flip or something. And from there, they would then use that to make more money, pay back their loans, and they use the student loans as a bank, or these things as a bank, instead of just using that money to just blow on Nikes, like you said.
Right.
Yeah, which I feel like it's an amazing thing that you actually did that. So when you did that for your mom, what was her reaction? Was it like a surprise, or what was that reaction?
She started crying, and she was so shocked. She was like, no, she's like, you need to get your books, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, I don't want you, in somebody's house, all this shit. Like I said, so at that, I didn't say all this shit because I wouldn't do it. Right. But like, at that, and I was like, no. And so she went, and she's like, I cannot believe you did this. And, and she put it there, and she had, I think that the down payment came to like $929, and I think, like I said, I think it was like $1,500. And so then after that, like it was like a 1-bedroom situation, got herself a couch and, a bed and stuff like that. And, the rest is history.
I love it. So going into marketing. So The For me, the root of any business really flourishing and at least getting noticed, because in order to get customers, people need to know about you. What drove you to do the marketing job, and what do you feel allowed you to be successful in that?
So, first, money, number one, like I said, the two job offers. And then number two is like storytelling, right? So one thing as a writer, because I guess that's kind of like my calling, right, in life, right? So that is what my talent is and superpower is writing. And so it's like I always knew how to tell a story, right? So at that point, like marketing is storytelling, right? It's setting the scene, it's getting people engaged in it, getting people to follow along and to buy into a why, and to make them feel a certain way. And so at that point, with journalism, I felt like the root was I don't mind telling people stories, but I also have a real problem with martyr type of things where you work, 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 and then you may never get it, right? You know what I mean? Like that's like imagine like you're out here going out with somebody, you're like, yeah, here's this, here, let me take you to the finest restaurant. Here's a Gucci purse, this, and this. And then she's like, I'm still not sure about how I feel. Like, that's how journalism is. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Well,
it really is. And,
right.
and it's like, and I was like, with marketing, I saw a more, not that it was linear, but I saw a way to the top, right? So I saw a way to progress from coordinator to manager to director to VP to eventually maybe CMO or COO. I just saw a path, and I started following that path. And that's what kind of got me into that. And on top of that, I like to solve problems. And I'm not a snitch. So that was the thing about journalism. I didn't
Okay.
like that. I don't like to tell on people. I like to solve problems. Even if you're like, I'm that friend. Like if you are doing like the most messed up thing in the world, I'm like, hey, look, let's work through it. Like,
Right. Right.
like
Right.
I'm not like, hey, like let's bust on you here. So
Exactly.
I didn't like that. Like I didn't like that. So that's what kind of got me into marketing, and I learned a lot, like problem solving, budgeting, how to run a global brand, project management, how to manage teams, event planning, even though I didn't want to, event planning, just how to manage the different channels from exactly like TV budgets to radio ad budgets, online marketing budgets, how to SEO, all that kind of stuff. So basically, running global marketing. Right, I kind of learned how to do that, negotiate contracts. That's even how I even got into the sports agency thing, because I knew how to build quantitative cases. So quantitative cases are basically like money cases, right? So what is the money case behind why we should work together as a brand? So a lot of times influencers, people like that, they are like, look at my followers, and that's really not a quantitative case. It's literally like, okay, like how can like segmenting this and this, how we're actually like, what's your go-to-market strategy, how are they converting, things like that. So I knew how to have those intelligent conversations with other brand directors. So that's what kind of led me into that.
So when you're talking about a money case, so that's basically like you're saying, why should we work with them, and by spending this money with you, what will that mean on the back end, basically?
Yeah, well, how does that create dollars and cents, right? So perfect example is when we will sign athletes to car deals. Like if we sign an athlete to a car deals, it's like, okay, how do we measure how their presence is monetized in the brand, essentially? So how getting them involved with us is going to add to our bottom line. And the other question is will it add to the bottom line? Will it just be a PR thing? And then what does that look like in PR dollars for us that we don't have to spend, that we could very well spend a fraction with them versus hiring a company to go do this? Like basically what will this interaction mean to the brand
Right. Gotcha.
financially?
Gotcha. Okay. And when you started the agency, because you went from marketing to the agency, and I can see where the correlation would be, as far as, to me, it would be marketing your clients to companies and showing them how they can actually improve their bottom line by utilizing your customers. So, kind of explain how that transition happened, and how does the background in marketing help you as an agent?
Yeah, so basically, so I think I was at something for the Browns or something like that. Like it was at a gala. So when you're a marketing director, you kind of like everybody, you're at every event, you're at the PGA tour, blah blah blah. So it's like running into players is not an anomaly, right? And on top of that, players purposely want to run into you. So like because you got a bag, right? So so
Right.
like you sell money. So at that point, a player walked up to me. I didn't even know he was a player. I don't watch football. I'll be honest and say that. And he walked up to me. He was like, "Hey, you know, I know who you are. This, and this." And I'm like, "Okay." Like, and I was like,
That's a weird pickup line.
right. I was like,
Right.
all right, and I just looked at his drink, and then I saw he was drinking water, so I'm like, I don't know where this dude is, but I'm like, hi, I'm Chrissy, and he's like, yeah, I'm so and so, and he's like, yeah, I got this, and this. I want to talk about you representing me. Yeah, so basically, he was asking me to like represent him and stuff like that, and then also like a few days later, one of my friends who I went to college with and played ball. She played ball professionally, and she asked me to represent her too. And then I was like, well, maybe I could do a little business with this, but I don't really know shit about it. So I was a member of the Union Club, which is a country club in Cleveland, and so it was it was the same country club that Arthur Lefebvre, who started IMG Endeavor with Mark McCormick. And so at that point,
IMG the
I reached
school.
IMG, the agency, the school. And
Okay,
so
like in Florida.
no, it's in Florida now, but it started in Cleveland.
Ah, okay,
And
okay.
and so at that point, I reached out to Arthur Lefebvre, who started IMG with Mark McCormick, and on a cold email, like on some like on a straight up cold email. And so I was like, hey, we're members of the same country club. Like that really meant anything. Enough to I was young enough to take chances that like I didn't know what I was doing. So I just had like some young confidence there. And I was like, hey, I need you to teach me how to run a sports agency. I got potential clients. And he's like, what?
Right.
Like I was like, I'm like, I got potential clients, I know you probably get kids asking you, how to get in the business all the time, but I actually have deals, this and this. And, he reluctantly talked to me. And so he said, hey, I'll give you 30 minutes, but I stayed 4 hours. He taught me how to run a sports agency.
Wow.
And then, yeah, like, how he got started with Arnold Palmer, all this other stuff. And, basically how to get the money, how to network, how to structure the deals, all that kind of stuff. And, I was writing furiously with my yellow legal pad at the time. And then, and it was ridiculous when I showed up to this thing. I'll never forget. I showed up to the IMG offices on 9th Street in Cleveland with, and I think he still was retaining his chairman seat at the time, even though he was no longer practicing. And my silly ass literally has on a yellow dress, like a yellow dress. Like it was like,
Wow.
like I'm like, I am ready. Like I am.
Right, right. I
and
love
and
it.
I was like, yeah, like I like show up and I'm like, and yeah, so the rest is history. Started doing that, and so then I got into mortgages because I had known Rick for like me and Rick. I had known Rick for like 10 years, I think, and we were really good friends. And he's like, hey, you need to get a mortgage license. You need to like start, because I refer him business, all this. He's like, you do a lot better networking than my own LOs. He's like, you need to get a license and just like have a second source of income. And so then once mortgage income replaced my sports income, I just left the business entirely because
Gotcha.
I just saw that I could do something more. So everything to me is always about doing something more. How can I get to the next level
Gotcha.
on things?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And you touched on a lot of great things in there, and I wanted to to make sure that we touched on those. So going to the country club. So this is something that you brought up a few times in the accountability group. So it was called Treadmill Talk, the accountability group. That's the name of it. My goodness.
Yes.
For whatever reason, I couldn't it wasn't coming to me. Whatever. So it's been that long. So the country club, kind of explain to the people why you feel that whether it's joining a country club or some of these types of clubs, why do you feel like it's important for people that is looking to people that are looking to network? Why is it important to join these types of clubs?
Number one is because of just like grounding in your purpose first. Like, because one thing we don't realize is that we literally live our lives on autopilot. And especially when you're young, I don't know how old you are, Eli, but I'm 30. And like, bottom line, when you're young, so I started doing private club life when I was 22 years old. And the reason was because I was, like I said, I was making $55,000 a year, which ain't shit. But at the end of the day, like, I felt like I was rich at the time. And I knew, and like in the first check that I actually had, I had this like little beat up Mercury Milan or something. Mm-hmm. And then I took me and my homegirls, we all went down to the club and I spent like, I think like $1,000.
Oh, Jesus. And like, so the whole check.
It was like the most hood rich thing I had ever been a part of that I facilitated in my life. So, and honestly, I don't even think it was alcohol. I think it was like, we was doing the most. We was like, yeah, we made it. And then we drive off in this broke down Milan, right? So anyway. So like so after I spent that check and then like had to scrape to my next payday, I was like, you know what, never fucking again. Like I learned quick, right? And so I was like, where I need to hang out. I'm young. I need to hang out, but I need to hang out in a place that's going to keep me focused on my goals. Otherwise, I'm going to get lost in the sauce. Right. And so, and on top of that, I got a big job. Right. So it's like I'm getting rapidly promoted and I have like at the time when I was at Bernie Marino Companies, I had Aston Martin, Infinity, Mercedes-Benz. And I'm like, okay, people my age aren't driving these cars. Where do I go? So at that point, I went to the Union Club. I joined a program. I think it was called like something about civic leaders in Cleveland or whatever. Ended up at the Union Club. Joined, my initiation fee was, I was 22 years old. I was under the age that they, I think, allowed in. I think the minimum was like 25 or 26, but they let me in because of who my boss was. And then they kind of made up, they made up dues for me and like, and an initiation fee. I paid it. And at that point, it just kind of changed my mind because it put me in the room with CEOs, senators. Like, I mean, I met Jeb Bush there. Like when the RNC and stuff like that came through Cleveland, all those people come, they stay there. And then instead of me like staying at hotels, I would stay at reciprocal clubs across the country. Oh, wow. Yeah, like, just to meet people. So it really kind of grounded me in my focus because every time I walked into that club, number one, I had to be dressed appropriately. So that also changes your mindset. You're not like, if you're at a club like that, you're not going to have the inclination to get off of your purpose because you don't want to be seen as that type of a person. And it gave me a place to bring people because, when you're 22, 23 years old, like you don't have like tons of money to go take somebody out to, the golf or whatever the case may be. It gave me an elegant place to bring people. I was meeting people and I even met the person that even offered me the job at BMW there. So it was like constantly being promoted. And so what I do is every time I'm about to go to another city or I move to another city, I always like look up what clubs are there and then kind of like springboard from there. Like perfect example is like I was telling you about earlier with the Georgia situation. Like, I mean, I immediately like looked into the Buckhead Club, you know what I'm saying? And signed up and joined the Buckhead Club. So when I'm there, I'm not just sitting around looking at myself, you can get lost in the sauce. I mean,
Yeah.
in Atlanta, you know what I mean? You can get lost in the sauce in New York City. So you have to just kind of be grounded. You know what I'm
Gotcha.
saying?
Gotcha.
And on top of that, you also have to recognize the opportunities that you can create from being with people that are like-minded,
Gotcha.
that are actually going somewhere in life, and
Gotcha.
not just living for their next weekend drink,
Exactly.
you know.
Exactly. I feel
Like,
you.
seriously. So that's why I say join a country club every, uh, you know, use the reciprocity, or join, whenever you move somewhere.
Gotcha. Yeah, you said
Yeah.
something else that was very interesting. So it reminded me of when I was younger, which was you're young enough to not have the fear to do certain things. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's such a powerful statement that you said because there are certain things that I did that when I was younger, say when I was 17, 18, 20, 21, that I would hesitate to do now because it's kind of like the world and society just kind of molds you into not doing certain things because of your perception, and you're a lot more worried about how you'll be perceived as being weird or too whatever. But whenever
Mhm.
you're 19 and you just do whatever you want, and it's like, oh well, that's the CEO of so and so. Everybody else will be like, oh no, no, don't speak to him. As a 20-year-old, you're like, I'll go talk to him. Like, what's the
Right.
problem? And it's like, and I think it's great that you did that. So that to me shows the power of starting young. So I guess speak to the people that may be younger and they're like, oh well, I'm not. I'm too young to start in the finance business. I'm too young to do whatever. Like, speak to the importance of starting young to be successful.
Honestly, you have to kind of come out the gate swinging, or life will get away from you and you will get lost. Like, I think that's probably one of my like superpowers, with where I didn't care about trying to be in the in crowd, right? Even though I played sports and all that kind of stuff, I knew at the end of the day that my situation at home was not what I wanted my situation to be forever. And so at that point I knew that I didn't have time to play.
Right.
And you got to understand, as a kid, you don't have time. You don't have the time that you think you have. And then that's how you look at people that will be 40 years old, and then they start like, I don't know what I want to do. Like,
Right.
well, it's like, because you haven't taken your life seriously. Like, you need to not always know what you want to do, because I have changed careers, which I think is fine, but know the direction that you want to go. Know where you want your endpoint to be. Like, what do you want your life to look like? I always knew what I wanted my life to look like, even though I didn't always know the path I was getting there. So that always made me make the right choices, where it's like, okay, like perfect example is, I don't smoke or do any type of drug, right? You know what I mean? Like, I'll drink, but I will not do any type of drugs, because like I know where I want to go. Okay. And so, like, and that's the whole thing. Like, like, when you don't know where you want to go, you're being dragged around like this earth, and and you don't even realize it. Like, and that's what a lot of young kids do now. They scroll on their phone, they go to every party, they want to just be a part of something. No, like, you have to know, you need to have like some type of compass post on where do you want your life to look like at 40, and then what does that, and then work backwards on what actions you need to take, who do you need to be around in order to make that happen. And then, even now, even as a 30-year-old, one thing that I do is, when I'm stressed out about things, if I'm emotional about things, I'm hurting about things, I think to myself, does this fit into my ultimate goal? And then what it does is it helps me release that resistance, because I'm like, okay, at the end of the day, this doesn't fit into the plan. So even though I'm stressed about it, I shouldn't even be stressed about it, because it's like, it needs to fall off. And
Gotcha.
that's what kids need to do. Just figure out what you want your life to look like, and then make the decisions from there. And I think, even when people look at weight loss, and even when we had the call, I would always say, I don't do keto diets, I don't do that kind of stuff. And the reason I don't do that kind of stuff is because I am a very intentional, purpose-driven person. So like I don't like need to do a fad diet, because a fad diet implies that I'm just gonna fucking go like not eat carbs for 3 weeks, and then I'm gonna go eat all the potato cakes I can, and like you
Potato
know what I mean?
cakes. Nice.
It's
All right.
inconsistent. It's inconsistent to the purpose. And I'm like, okay, how do I see myself? Right. So what you want to do too as a young person is create the future identity that you want. So my identity is what drives my decisions. So if I see myself, even though I'm not, if I see myself as a future fund manager, this, and this, like I'm going to make decisions as a future fund manager. I'm not going to make, like, if I see myself as a healthy person, then, and that's another thing, like I basically have almost stopped drinking. So like I'm very close to like being totally not with it. Like I'm like at down, I think, to like one a week. But at the end of the day, like I didn't try to do something like all cut out, but
Yeah.
like, because I see myself as a healthy person. So whenever I make decisions on where I want to go, I look at like what identity do I want to build, and then I work backwards.
Gotcha. And you said something else that was very interesting, and I'm glad you broke that down for the youth that's listening. So you were saying when you spoke to that individual about starting a agency, a sports agency, you're saying how other people may come in and they'll say, okay, well, teach me the game, teach me how to do this, how to start, how to get anything going. But you knew what you wanted to do, so you started the process first. And then from there, it's like, all right, now let me just get some assistance. But now when you're going to them, it's not a matter of you're starting fresh and they need to teach you everything. It's a, you have pieces now. Now I can show you what to do with the pieces. And it reminds me of this. So the conference I went to this last weekend, Bridger Pennington, his dad is, so Bridger is a person that made this investment fund live, like the launch of funds. But his dad is a fund manager. His dad does like, he has a fund that's like 34 billion under management. Like he does it on a big scale. And he taught Bridger how to do things moving forward. But John, which is the dad's name, John was telling Bridger how when he was first starting off in the fund world, he would have to compete against these folks that are coming from Harvard and these Ivy League schools whenever they're speaking to family offices and some of these larger investors. So these Yale folks will come in and say, oh, well, we theorize that in this particular area, the projected income is going to be here, the projected rent, so that we're based on the formula, this is what your return would be. And then he would come in afterwards and say, okay, well, here's a deal that I actually have. And this is what is based on being that we already did the underwriting. So with this information, is this something that you actually want to be a part of? And that's how he got to start. Instead of just being like, oh, let me just sweet talk somebody into just giving me a bunch of game and money. It's a, let me hustle first. And now when I come to you, it's like, oh, well, I'm going to go with you every time because you actually got something. So did you always realize that that was something that was beneficial, or was it just like a part of what you did? And it's like, well, let me hustle first. And if I get stuck, then somebody, I'll kind of reach out for somebody to kind of help me out.
Yeah, like I've always felt like who you know will get you in the door, but what you know will keep you there. And so one thing I've always like been cognizant of is to not basically fumble opportunities, right? And so essentially what I try to do is to come at things totally prepared so that people take me seriously, so that we can actually advance. You know what I mean? And in the process. So like I feel like if I reach out to somebody and I take their time or whatever case may be, I need to have something of tangible value in order to even make it worth their time.
Right.
So I guess maybe that's why, I mean, I guess maybe that's the marketing sales in me, but I just know for a fact that you got to have an offer. You got to have an
Yeah.
offer. You can't you can't show up. And I think that that's where a lot of people don't, as far as like the sports industry is notorious for it. Like you have all these kids and they're like, can I pick your brain let me know, whatever, it's like, can I pick your brain? This, and this. I used to have 1,000 LinkedIn, but there's no intention, no purpose, no direction. They don't know where they want to go. If you offer them a job literally cleaning the stadium, they would take it, which makes no sense because they would be just say a law student. Like, so it's like, know where you're going, know what you're trying to do here. And so at that point, and I feel like it shows the capability, right? So if everybody wants a job, but like, if you bring somebody an opportunity, you're showing in real time that you know how to do this job. Like, you may not be perfect at the job, but you know at least how to be a self-starter. So you need to, like, if you want a marketing job, go up to the company. So like, even when I first like when I had my marketing interview, and I was like, okay, I'm great at storytelling. I noticed that your social media sucks. So this is what I think that I can add value to your company doing that. And that's how I got the marketing job. Like, I was a journalism major. So at that point, like, who's considering me? I literally showed up with, okay, this is how I can make you better. I mean, and that's what people need to understand. Like, whatever you want, you need to figure out how you can add value to that person, and then approach them. Don't come asking for something.
Gotcha. I love it. I love it. And so from there, I know you touched on some of the things that you did as far as your career, but were there any other jobs that you had as well? Like, say, when you're in high school or some of those first jobs, like, did you work at like a Foot Locker or bagging groceries? Like, what are some of those other jobs that you might have had when you're younger?
Yeah, I worked at Saks Fifth Avenue, and I was the top salesperson there, which was pretty interesting. So like, and I worked at Baskin Robbins, which is an ice cream store, and I worked at KFC. And you know, eat chicken you buy at the grocery store. That's all I can say.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so when it comes to, I want to talk about Saks Fifth. Do you feel like I'll kind of take it back, and I talk about this a lot on like all my other episodes. I used to sell makeup with the company, right? And so I remember when I first got the sales job, they were like, "Oh, it's either you're gonna go into the branch of selling Dallas Mavericks tickets, or you're gonna sell makeup." I'm like, obviously, I want to sell Mavericks tickets, so let's go that route. And so day one, they had a bunch of boxes of makeup on the floor, and they were talking about, okay, Mavericks, that you're going to go to this place and you're going to start selling. I'm okay, cool. And then it was like, all right, so Eli, here's your box of, makeup. I'm like, whoa, like, I'm not doing makeup. I'm doing, this. Is like, listen, and they kind of broke it down to me to where it's like the things that you're going to learn from selling this makeup, you'll be able to utilize and anything in life. And you're going to have to learn how to sell. So we're going to teach you how to sell, and forget what you're selling. Forget whether it's makeup, forget whether it's, Mavericks tickets. Think about the concept of sales, and it'll help you out from there. So, and I'm super glad that I went through that process because it's definitely helped me out. Whether it comes to speaking to motivated sellers to get properties under contract or whatever, I always refer back to those makeup days on learning how to connect with people on different levels. So
Right.
when you were in sales at Saks Fifth, what are some of the things that you learned from there that you were able to carry on into other careers?
First, luxury sales. So first you got to understand that like luxury sale is a different type of sale because it's like they need it but don't, I mean, they want it but don't need it, right? So at that point it's like you have to treat people with intelligence and care, and so you need to learn how to have kind of like business conversations with people to make them to, even though they're in the store, it has to make sense to them. Like specifically I was selling credit cards, right? You know what I mean? So, and the reason, like, yes, I did sell apparel and things like that, but I knew that selling credit cards was going to make me more money. So because I got paid in cash every time I sold a credit card, right? So I would sell like 20 credit cards a day. It was
Oh,
ridiculous.
nice. That is crazy. Okay.
It was
Nice.
pretty insane. And I like honed in on that. And so like basically I would like talk about like shit like leveraging your cash flow, you know what I mean? Making sure that you're like building, something, it's like it'll be like a small little charge on there. And then at that point you can build your credit, this and this. Like I would just like figure out what people's drivers were like, and I would figure out like how much money people basically had in their pocket. Like I could tell how much people had in their pocket by how many times they walked past something. So at that point I knew that they were a perfect credit card candidate, because at that point like you're like you want it, but you're negotiating with yourself right now. You're like, I got rent, I got this, whatever the case may be. So at that point, I'm like, hey, I have an option here for you. I'm not gonna walk up like, hey, you want this? Like but like, I'm like, hey, I see you like this thing. I have like this option for you. I can take a little bit off this back. It'll save you some money. And on top of that, you can leverage the current cash flow in your pocket for other things while still getting what you want. Did you want to take a swing at it? And then they'll be like, yeah, and then I'll always have my iPad, and that's how that happened. So I would just kind of like learn human behavior and all kinds of stuff, like, because it just made me a really observant person too.
Gotcha. So, all right. So it's great that you're talking about that. So, did you have prior sales experience, or whether it was like selling candy or whatever it was in school, or was that like your first time actually selling stuff?
That was my first time selling anything.
Gotcha. Okay. And
Yep.
did you suck when you first got there and you just improved, or just from the
Nope.
beginning you're ready to roll?
Nope. I was, because the first thing I did was I was like, I noticed everybody was low energy, and I was like, I'm gonna raise the freaking intensity. And so that was like the first thing. So I became basically greeter of the year. Not literally.
Yeah.
Like when they would walk in, I'm like, welcome to Saks. What are you celebrating today? Like, blah, blah. I would just like be over the top.
Right.
And the reason is because number one, like Black people always get a bad rap anyway of like having a bad attitude. But everybody else was like, had their head up their asses trying to act like they were the brand, if that makes sense. So like a lot of times luxury, you'll walk in and they're like, welcome to Louis Vuitton, whatever. And I'm like, welcome to Saks Fifth Avenue. Like, I'm Chrissy. Like, you go ahead and look around. Like, I'm here to serve you. Just let me know. Like, blah, blah, blah. And like, I'm just like over the top. And even like if they get something, I would like wrap it up into like this whole thing. Like, I just was like over the top. And when you also look at it too, not to get esoteric, but that is the vibration of money. That is the vibration of like performance, is literally adding value. So I was so focused on standing out as somebody that was adding value to people's lives versus somebody that was just trying to get a check. So it just made me like, and then once I figured out the credit card game, I realized, okay, how can I add value to the credit cards? And then the rest is history. I felt like I think probably like off of credit cards alone, I was making like again, this wasn't a high paying job, of course, but like I think I was making at least like $200-300 a week extra on credit cards.
I didn't even know. I had no idea that I assumed that was part of their incentives of like, oh, make sure you also incorporate credit cards. But I didn't know there was like just to let you know, if you do, you get bread off of this too. I had no idea.
Cash money. So sometimes it would be, and it depends. Like sometimes it'd be $5 you get out for every credit card cash, and then sometimes it'd be 10, sometimes 20. Depends on the it depends on the promotion. But yeah, I came ready.
Gotcha.
And like to the point that they were like, oh, let's just make you greeter, because they wanted to, get credit card money. And I was like, and so at that point I would carry iPad on me, and they didn't realize that.
Nice.
And I was, before they even got to the register, I'm like, I already.
He said, "Oh, would you like to register?" He said, "Oh, the lady at the front door already got me as soon as I walked in." Gotcha. I love it. So, all right. So going back to you being a mortgage broker. So you got into the game of that. So what was the? I know you went from being the sports agent to being getting into the field of mortgage broking, and you said that someone kind of hinted that, hey, you should probably consider doing this because there's some additional funds that you can get. So what made you accept that challenge, and what caused you to really want to go all in on this mortgage business?
Yeah, so like I started looking at things in the sports industry and I was like, okay, this is cool, but like this ain't gonna last. Like, period. Like, um, even though I know the sports industry is still around, but it's rapidly changing. And I believe that athletes need to be more educated and empowered to represent themselves more than having somebody represent them. And I noticed that it was going in that direction. So at that point, I was like, well, let me do something different. And on top of that, I was like, let me do something that I can do for 20, 30 years. And then like possibly, like I have huge goals. Like I want to put my name on the side of the New York Library and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it's like, what is going to get me there? And it was like, you look at the top wealth creators in the United States, and it's like real estate, finance, retail, stuff like that. And it wasn't sports. So, and I noticed that the owners of sports people were in real estate and finance. So at that point, I was like, hey, let's go where the true power is and start building that. And it was my best friend, and he had a dream of wanting to build a mortgage company. And everybody that he brought in, essentially before the team we have now, it just kept flaking on him. You know what I mean? Like, and his business was like about to close, all this shit and all this stuff. You know what I mean? And so at that point, like, I was like, well, this is a wonderful opportunity where I can help somebody that I love and we can both benefit off of it. And so at that point, we went to work building this company, and it's kind of been the rest history from there. So the first year of mortgages, I don't think I made over what I made in sports, but it was significant. And then at that point it overtook it. And it's been fine. And I know that I have some goals this year and it should be getting there. So, yep.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
So for the people that want to really understand, what is the difference between working with a mortgage broker and just kind of going to the bank and just being pre-qualified for something? So what's the benefits of using a broker?
Yeah, turn times, transparency. So when you work with a broker, like myself, like I said, like we're a correspondent broker. So a correspondent broker, which I would advocate you work with a correspondent broker. I would not work with a mortgage broker. And the reason I wouldn't is because of the fact that they don't have control over the process. So at that point, your conditions could change, all this stuff. That's how deals fall through. So we have in-house underwriting, funding, all of that stuff. So but we also have a relationship with over 80 different banks and lenders so that we can get you the best program. But since we control it, they are going to give you an even better rate because they want that loan at the end. Right. You know what I mean? So it's like at that point, the banks are more likely to work for you when you're with a correspondent lender than they are. And with a broker, unfortunately, they call the shots with the broker because they're like, hey, well, I won't do this, this, and this, because as a broker, you constantly have to go back and forth to the bank throughout the loan. You get what I'm saying? And then with a bank, they have their own programs. They can do whatever they want to, but it's a lot of bureaucracy. You're going to be looking at 30, 45-day close times. We're closing loans anywhere from 10 to 21 days. A broker, I don't know what they're doing. You know what I mean? That model isn't really the best. So it's like most of the time when you see like a true mortgage broker is usually like an independent one person type of thing because people are kind of wising up and getting away from that model, which I think is best for the industry. But yeah, so that's kind of the stuff. And we're meet to sheet. So like meet to sheet means that like straight up Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac guidelines is what we go off of. There aren't any like additional like overlays, so if the minimum is a 580 credit score, the minimum is a 580 credit score. I'm not going to say it's 620. So that's like a major.
So why do other brokers or other companies add additional requirements on top of what the government entities are. So
To
like the Freddie
mitigate
Mae.
risk. Yeah, to mitigate risk. So like essentially like the FHA rates of default are like 3 times what a conventional is. So at that point, banks and stuff have to protect themselves
Yeah,
by, upping the standards. So
gotcha.
that's really kind of what that is about.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, for the people that want to reach out to you and if they want to get a mortgage for a property, do you work with just people that want to move into a property, or do you work with investors as well?
Yeah, I work with people and investors. So probably about 40% of my business is with investors. I have events for investors all the time and try to connect people. But yeah, we definitely do investment properties. You can, I think I even made a podcast about this. You can build out, up to 40 units using conventional lending. You could do 4 units. Um, conventional financing, 20-25% down, depending on what your credit is. And then, kind of start building out from there. And honestly, you can utilize the cash flow and stuff like that for the subject property. So you can use 75% of the monthly cash flow to get qualified and stuff. So yeah, we definitely work with investors all the time, K1s, trust, all that. So yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And if people wanted to get in touch with you to work with you to get a mortgage, what's a good way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, it's C Sanders at goldstarfinancial.com.
C Sanders at, say it again.
goldstarfinancial.com.
Financial.com. All right. So C Sanders at Goldstar Financial or financials?
Financial.
Okay, .com. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that I put that on the screen as well so that people can have that email to go to. And from there, so do you want them to go to the website as well, or just send you an email just inquiring about that?
Yeah, you can send me an email.
Gotcha. Okay,
I'm
cool.
down for it.
Gotcha. Yeah, so definitely make sure if you guys are looking to get an investment property or a property that you're looking to move into, be sure to email Chrissy here. Now, are there particular states that you're licensed in? At the moment, I know by the time this goes on, at some point you may be licensed in more states or whatever. But is there a list that you have that you want to kind of run off?
Yeah. So California, Indiana, Florida, Oregon, Ohio. Yeah. And I answer the phone 24/7. So
Gotcha. All right, cool.
I'm always ready to go.
All right, what's a good number that they can reach? Or if you have like office number or something like that.
I don't have an office number, but I don't mind giving out my cell phone number. I'll just block your number.
Well, okay.
614-512-7545. So 614-512-7545.
Gotcha.
Don't get crazy or you're getting blocked.
There you go. Awesome. Yeah, for business inquiries only. For that. So awesome. So thank you for sharing that, and I want to make sure that people understand. If you guys are serious about getting a mortgage, whether it comes whether it's you getting something that you're going to move into or an investment property, she'll definitely be able to help you out, answer the questions that you guys would have, and get you guys rolling. So I definitely appreciate you doing that. Now, this segment of the podcast is what's called the lightning round. All right.
Okay.
So I'm gonna ask you 3 random questions and answer them to the best of your ability. All right.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Here we go. Now, number 1. All right. If you had to change your name to anything else besides Chrissi Sanders, what would it be and why?
It'd be Taylor.
Taylor. Okay. You said that very fast.
Taylor.
Okay.
Yep.
Why Taylor?
I don't know. I just think Taylor is like a badass name.
Okay.
Like,
Gotcha. I'll be honest. You look more like a Taylor than Chrissy. You give me more Taylor vibes. So I agree. Taylor would fit you a lot better. All right. So number 2, if you had to eat one meal for 1 year and you can only eat this meal, what would it be?
Mm-hmm. No weight gain?
No, just whatever. It's gonna be weight gain. I mean, if you're eating like butter soup, then yes, it's gonna be that. But one meal for 1 year, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or you can skip breakfast, whatever it is. But as far as you consuming food, it has to be this thing. What
It
would
would
it
be
be?
chicken tenders and grits.
Interesting. Okay, why?
I love grits and I love chicken tenders. Like I love it.
Uh,
And that's
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Ch- chicken tenders and grits. To me,
Yes.
I've never seen these two together. But
Go
you're
to
just
Atlanta.
okay. Gotcha. Okay, chicken tenders and grits. All right, cool. And lastly, all right, if you had to combine two animals, all right, what two animals would it be, and what features would you take from each one?
Honestly, that's so funny that you say that. Like, I always like I my spirit animal that I resonate with is like a wolf, and I probably say a wolf and a lioness. And the features are I mean, like to be a great provider, you got to be a wolf. Period. Like you got to be able to hunt, stand up for your pack, and go it alone. And then a lioness, protects the household and hunts. So, I've always been a hunter. So
Gotcha.
yeah,
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome. Good deal.
I'm
And
allergic to cats. So
yeah, so you would be super allergic to that. So, okay, any physical features that you would want to morph into this animal?
no, I don't know. I'd probably like be a like gray wolf.
Uh, okay. All right, let's go with that. All right, so now this segment we talk about three books that you would recommend for people to read. So this could be just about entrepreneurship, mortgage, being a mortgage broker, or just personal development. What three books would you recommend to people?
So like the first book is Letting Go, The Power of Letting Go. And that book is what it sounds like. It's basically about letting go. The other would probably be The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Hmm.
And The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck is really about what we talked about with the IMG thing, right?
Hmm.
So it's really learning to get out of your own head so that you can actually succeed in life. Because like too often you think about what people think about you, what you think about you, all this shit. And it's like you gotta like drop that bullshit in order to like go. Letting go is really about just learning to let flow. And then what else am I reading right now? I've been reading a lot of like lately, so I guess all of my books are like, and I'm super into like Taoism and Stoicism. So it would probably be like the Tao Te Ching. So and which is like by Lao Tzu or something. So and that's just really about basically letting life letting flow. And then David Meltzer, Connected to Goodness. Stuff like that. So right now, because of like I told you the things that are going on in my life,
Hmm.
I am focusing on how can I let go. How can I let go? And how can I let things flow? And just be okay with losing things in order to make space for better.
Gotcha. Okay, awesome. All right, and so those are the three books. So what would be the first step that you would recommend someone to either become a mortgage broker or to be successful in entrepreneurship? What's the first step you would say for that person?
The first step for being successful as an entrepreneur, I would say you would have to you gotta like totally trust yourself. Like just trust yourself. Like even like you gotta just say, hey, it doesn't matter if nobody gets it, I get it, and then you gotta kind of start taking action from there. Then as far as a mortgage broker is concerned, it's a pretty straightforward process. You study and then you take a test. I don't know how much the test is anymore because it's been a while, but at the time I think it was $110. So like it was and then you get with a brokerage and you kind of get out there and start swinging. And you don't overthink the process. So it's like sales and mortgages is listening. right? So like, what are the people trying to do? Like, stop, stop trying to get all the jargon, because I think that's what people do. They overthink analysis by paralysis. They're like, shit, let me think it, like, and it doesn't matter. So.
Gotcha. All right, cool. And lastly, words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom. I would probably say, let go to let in.
Let go to let. I like that. Nice and simple. Let go to let in. All right, awesome. Chrissy, thank you so much for doing this podcast. Definitely learned a lot. And I know this has provided a lot of value, not only to me, but everyone that's going to be listening to this episode. So thank you so much. And I look forward to maybe doing another one of these episodes. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Your First Steps podcast. Let us know what you thought about this episode by leaving a review. And don't forget to subscribe.